You saw the title and thumbnail correct. We are finally back with a tier list in MLB The Show 24. In case it's your first time watching this is where I go through all the cards in Diamond Dynasty, rank them from F tier all the way up to S, and kind of chat about what cards I'm looking to use at every position. I want to quickly rattle through some points. First of all, these take a lot of time to make, so if you enjoy, make sure you like the video and sub to the Scan Plays channel here. This is where I post all my Diamond Dynasty tips. I almost didn't do these videos this year because of how much time it takes. Second of all, these are just my opinions. Of course, I can't test every single card. Always use the players you do best with. A lot of times, the best choices aren't always the best on paper. Always use those players that you do best with. A lot of times I rank cards based on how often people say they really like or dislike cards. If there are players that you do enjoy, let me know in the comments. If you want to see these tier lists just on their own, you should go to my SHOWZONE profile in the link down below. You can check them all out on my profile in the tier list section, scrolling all the way down. Also, by the way, you should check out SHOWZONE because they have a lot of cool things. You can use code SCAN for a pro subscription. It is really worth it in my opinion. But now let's hop on into the tier lists. These are all diamond cards, except for catcher here. We're dipping into some golds here. And I'm ranking these cards for Hall of Fame difficulty. This is at 700 plus rating and ranked, and this is where the games kind of start to get more serious. If you play below 700, you have a lot more freedom in who to use. So I get very particular with these ratings for Hall of Fame in specific. F is probably the only tier that I would entirely avoid. The D and C tier are your solid starter options. So if you're just beginning the game and don't have many cards, they can have some play then. If you're looking for cards to really use on Hall of Fame, I'd recommend typically the B tier and above, because these cards have enough attributes to succeed on that difficulty. I think you should find some good options from Mike Napoli there in the S tier, who I think is the guy. You get 89 Gary Sanchez in Team Affinity, Joe Mauer for the ranked program, or Will Smith if you have some stubs. I think they'll be fantastic options for any type of player too. In the B tier, you'll probably have to be a little bit better with your PCI placement because a lot of these players have weird swings or just PCI sizes that are tougher to use on Hall of Fame, but I think can still have some play there. Now we're on to first base, and I'm willing to have a bad fielder at first base. This hitter has to be one of your best couple hitters in the lineup in my opinion. Your corner outfielders, corner infielders, and of course your DH should be big bats in my opinion whenever you can get them. So players who are ranked low typically don't have that level of power, but I'd say your D and even C tier are some solid starter options. I've personally really loved Spencer Jones, and using Bryce Harper right now while he's supercharged, he definitely plays above D tier. But again, at our B tier and above, this is really where the options show. Some of the cards down in the B tier are a little bit platoon heavy like Joey Votto, but have enough pop where I think he could have some play, especially with a platoon option where he faces righties and you have a good hitter like Justin Turner who could face a lefty. These are probably not your long-term options over at first base. There are some hitters with significantly better contact and power that you can use, and they're basically all in the A tier. 87 Adam Dunn is a fantastic captain choice if you haven't chosen your cards out of that. Oswaldo Cabrera is going to get a lot of love at a lot of infield positions, being a switch hitter. And if you're looking for a good starter option, honestly, I'd recommend Tony Clark. I've played a lot of BR this year, and I've had a lot of fun with him as a good switch hitting first baseman. You have some good plays in the S tier. JD Davis is very solid in the BR program. He has enough contact, pretty good power, and a very solid swing. Candelario is a top tier corner infield option, switch hitter with pretty good hitting. And then Jose Abreu has gotten a lot of play, even from really good players. I think that's mostly because he fits the Nolan Arenado captain, but he's very good versus lefties, pretty good versus righties. Rafael Palmeiro is a 95 overall, but I have him in the A tier because in Hall of Fame, his 80-something contact starts to get a little sketchy. And this is exactly why that overall doesn't tell the whole story. Different things matter at different positions. And for first baseman, I want someone with high contact and high power. Now, second base, you have a little bit of a shift. Defense definitely matters a little bit more. It's a position where you can find some speed, and there just aren't that many great hitting second basemen. So a lot of times, if you're gonna have a really good hitting second baseman, you have to sacrifice some defense or speed or something along those lines. The only cards who are ranked low are cards, in my opinion, that are just so weak of hitters that they're going to have tough play. But up to our B, A, and S tier, I really think most players will find someone in that A or S tier that they can get reasonably. My pick would be Alfonso Soriano's 91 overall. I've actually really liked that card a ton. Good enough contact, pretty good speed, good enough defense, and I actually really like Soriano's swing lately. So I would say he's the good free-to-earn XP reward path guy that a lot of people should have if they've been consistently playing. But you might need to dip into that B tier to get someone like Justin Turner or even 88 overall Colt Keith here as like a solid hitter over at second base. But I definitely think the top 3 are going to be Corey Seager. You got to get that card in your infield if you have him. 93 Matt Shaw, who's currently a new headliner, I believe, and very solid hitter infielder versus both sides. And then Oswaldo Cabrera, like I mentioned before, has pretty solid speed, fielding, and is a switch hitter. And I've actually really liked his swing from using his supercharge so far. So I'd recommend one of those 3 as like your top options, but I really think you'll be more than fine getting someone in the B tier and above at second base. Third base, I like to treat a lot like a second first base, where I'm looking for a really big bet out of here. But yet again, defense matters a little bit more. It's kind of tough to run like a common fielder or someone with a really low arm accuracy here, because you will make some more errors as a third baseman. But you at least can hide some bad fielders here if they're a really good hitter. But in our B and A tiers, again, we have some interesting choices like Colt Keith, who is a very solid infield option. Justin Turner. Adrian Beltre is a swing I really like. Colson Montgomery is a very solid starter card. But again, I would really recommend in that A tier, someone like JD Davis will be a very solid third baseman, and he's not expensive to get whatsoever. I had Matt Shaw as like a top shortstop option, but since he's a slightly weaker hitter, he's slightly lower in the third base list because I'm looking for hitting, and I think the guys in the S tier are going to be better hitters than him. I have 97 Corey Seager here. I think people will get him relatively soon, but again, Corey Seager, Candelario, whereas Waldo Cabrera, I think are going to be some of the better, well-rounded options on Hall of Fame. I think they all have enough hitting attributes to be very good options for everyone. But I will say, this is usually a very deep position. We haven't had many top tier third basemen so far. And then to wrap up the infield, we have our shortstops. I'm definitely looking for like a 5-tool type player. I need a little bit of speed, fielding, contact, power, all of those things if I can get it. So again, players who are ranked lower, in my opinion, don't have enough hitting to be very solid on Hall of Fame. Some of them have some good swings, like Brandon Crawford could be a very solid starter option. Work our way up to the B tier, and I again think there'll be some fun starter options for people. Carlos Correa and Colson Montgomery, and yet again, Colt Keith are very good beginning shortstops if you are just hopping on the game, haven't done any Team Affinity or any other programs. But in that A tier, it gets interesting. We got some guys like Jorge Polanco, who's a solid switch hitter. Jackson Holliday and Xander Bogaerts are like contact type hitters. And even the World Series award, Ernie Banks, I have in the A tier. He's definitely a very good shortstop, but he just isn't really that fast, has a little weaker power versus one side. So that's the only reason I put him in the A tier. Yet again, in that S tier, I think Corey Seager is probably the best shortstop. If you have him, definitely play him there. I think O'Neal Cruz is best at shortstop. He makes so many diving plays over there. He's going to be a vacuum over there. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to take for that slightly lower contact. And then I think Rich Aurelia will be a very solid option whenever we can get him in season 1. And now we have the outfield. And yes, I have a designated hitter tier list. When you look at the outfield, you realize the fielding and the speed matters, especially this year. I noticed that really slow first step is pretty common in the outfield this year, so I'm really prioritizing speed and hopefully good enough reaction. I don't care how good of a hitter you are, there are enough hitters who have enough contact and power and enough fielding and speed to be good outfielder options. So if you're lacking in any of those things, you definitely get bumped down. Also, looking at the list, there are just so many options. This is just the C tier, who could be solid starter outfielders, but again, these cards don't have that long term of play, especially without considering captain boosts. You have one of the best hitters in the game, especially right now, Yordan Alvarez, but as an outfielder, he's gonna be rough. If you're just starting off and you happen to have a really good hitter like him, and you have to play him in the outfield, you definitely can, but that defense definitely gets noticed. So that is why someone like him is not in that A or S tier, because he definitely is lacking in the field. I'd highly recommend 89 overall Dylan Cruz. 89 Giancarlo Stanton. The new 91 overall Michael Conforto is pretty good. 88 Mike Trout. All these guys have enough of the tools to hit well and also make plays in the field, and you need that in the outfield. And even Byron Buxton on his own is pretty solid, but his contact definitely gets a little low on Hall of Fame. So if you're someone who's playing on Hall of Fame or just getting there, keep that in mind. And now we got the cream of the crop outfielders. Of course, 99 Babe Ruth is the guy. If you have to play him in the outfield, he's definitely like a top tier option out there. Even though he isn't the best fielder, you're getting max contact and power. That is a sacrifice worth taking. But if you don't need to play him in the outfield, I would definitely recommend Mike Trout and Ronald Acuna if you have all the stubs in the world. They have some of the best swings in the game, especially with inside edge. They might have very good attributes that day. And even though their fielding isn't the best, they have enough speed to make up for some bad jumps that they might have. And Acuna might make some weird plays with bronze fielding, but I just think he's such a good hitter that is so worth sacrificing. And it isn't that bad with his level of speed, at least. You might be shocked seeing 91 overall Christian Yelich here, but this card is great. His swing is fantastic. He's got enough fielding and speed to make most plays out there. And the contact plays on Hall of Fame difficulty. I think he's a very good option for any player. Or even 91 Mickey Mantle being a headliner and like 20K-ish, give or take. That's a very solid option for center field if you need one. So if you have all of the stubs in the world, you might have an outfield like Yelich, Trout, and Acuna. If you're just hopping on or just building up your team bit by bit, I would definitely say go for someone like Christian Yelich in left, Dylan Cruz in center field, and then someone like Giancarlo Stanton in right field. Or if you want to even get more creative, put Byron Buxton in there, especially on all-star difficulty, and a good amount of these cards actually will get boosted by that captain. But of course, I have a designated hitter tier list. I did want to put this together this year because obviously DHs, you're looking for pure hitting. The fielding does not matter one bit. So these are all players who are either very slow outfielders or just any sort of hitter with below silver fielding. So DH is probably the best spot to play them. Don't use guys like in the F tier who are just weak hitters. But as you work our way up, we actually have some good options who are even golds, like JD Martinez. If you're using the Byron Buxton captain, I'd highly recommend him. Or 84 Jorge Soler. You could also probably include Willie Castro's BR card at some of these positions, but he is definitely just a really bad fielder. But as we work our way up to the B, A, and S tier, if you can, you probably want to look for B and above. I think these hitters have enough on the table where you could hit well with them, especially guys like Adam Dunn, JD Davis, Jose Abreu, and Tony Clark aren't that hard to get. We have Juan Soto and Mike Napoli, who are definitely assumed designated hitter options, but yes, I have Acuna in here. In case you don't want to deal with the bad outfield, you can throw him in the DH, but I don't think he's that top tier of a DH in comparison to someone like Babe Ruth and Yordan Alvarez. These two are some of the best couple hitters in the game. So DH is going to be the spot a lot of people end up trying to play them. And if you have any of them, definitely go for them there. You at least have options with the DH, and you might just end up running someone who has a swing that you really like that you just can't get in the field anymore. We're on to our starting pitchers now. And to talk starting pitching, especially on Hall of Fame difficulty, you need some good pitches to get the best hitters in the game out. Ideally sinkers and cutters. This is also where the hits and Ks per nine really come into play, because you want to make those opponents' PCIs as small as you can get. So pitchers who are ranked lower have pitch mixes that are tougher to pitch with, or maybe are a little weaker on the attributes. Do you like high velocity? Do you like sinkers and cutters and control? Find the type of pitcher you are and use similar types of pitchers based on what you succeed in. But again, cards in our D and C tier, probably just starter cards. I don't know if they have that much long-term play, just because they're a little bit lackluster in attributes or the overall pitch mix. Very likely you'll have at least one or two of these guys in your rotation as you get to Hall of Fame difficulty, just because it's very difficult to have 5 very good starting pitchers. So I guess I should talk about a couple players who are pretty viable in that C tier. I think Jacob Misarowski can have some early play. The new Shoto Imanaga card could probably be solid, especially with his breaking ball pitch mix. Zach Greinke is pretty fun. Michael King has a funky motion. And if you're looking for a just okay free-to-earn option, Garrett Crochet's 91 overall could definitely have some play in that first season 1 drop. And even 92 Nick Frasso here has an outlier sinker, I believe, if I saw that correctly. So he actually might be a solid starter. He just doesn't have an overall pitch mix to really be consistently good. I think if you can get these players, they actually might be some top tier pitchers for your rotation. You might be interested in some of the choices here. Patrick Corbin has been someone who's always had success, even on the higher levels of the game without the best attributes. Something about him is funky enough where he could pitch well. So if you're looking for a captain and you haven't chosen it yet, don't sleep on Patrick Corbin. Also, you might be shocked to see Pedro Martinez's 95 overall down here. He's a pretty good pitch mix, but I find good hitters on Hall of Fame can read him well. But yeah, a lot of these pitchers lack something. Maybe they don't have enough attributes to be elite sinker cutter pitchers. Those are guys like Yohan Santana and Jesus Luzardo, who are pretty good. Or they're guys who are just funky enough. Guys like Chris Sale and Babe Ruth, who could definitely mess with some people. But they're all just a little bit short from being like top tier. And that's where the A tier comes into play. These guys will be like your ace level type pitchers for many teams. I think John Donaldson will have some play now. I heard he did have that bug where you couldn't time up his pinpoint properly, but now that that's fixed, I think it'll be a very solid play. Satchel Paige, I personally love. He was actually my favorite pitcher last year. So a 90 overall version of him, I think I personally will enjoy. And then Shohei Ohtani is actually very funky this year. I think something with his motion is a little bit more deceptive with how he holds the ball. So very good players having a tough time reading Ohtani this year. But of course, your top two without a doubt are going to be Corbin Burnes and Randy Johnson. Corbin Burnes is high velocity and the sinker and cutter, that meta pitch mix. And Randy Johnson is always tougher to hit. Those two you're going to be seeing all the time on that difficulty. There's a chance you only get Randy Johnson and you start dipping down even to the C tier to find some good pitchers. And then finally, we have our bullpen. I have some gold options here. You start to see that there really aren't many great relievers. As much as I want to put these guys in the A tier, I don't think they're really good enough. But I feel like if there are any staples in the bullpen you can go for, it's going to be Aaron Bummer, who is a good lefty reliever with sinker and cutter. Adam Ottavino has that sinker cutter as well, but also throws across his body, so he's tougher to read. Same with Andrew Miller. He throws across his body. He's a big lefty. So guys like Clase, I like. Evan Phillips, I really like. Some people might not. Jason Foley has an outlier sinker, is probably a safe option. So don't be afraid to extend down into the golds to find relievers that you like. You might have to, and that is entirely okay. And last, I do want to show you my current team that I would be running in ranked. Obviously, when you're constructing a lineup, you're using guys like supercharges, especially at this point in the year as we're building up our inventories more, because they will have some very good play. But I'm trying to get live series collections, so I'm not trying to spend a lot of stubs on market cards. So I don't even have S tier players at every position. I honestly dip down into the C in a lot of positions because that's just how this game goes. You have so much depth to cover. That's a part of the game. So yeah, that is my first tier list for MLB 24. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure you do sub to the channel because I will be making a new tier list at some point, probably a little bit after the new Team Affinity drops soon, because I want to see these lists drastically change before I cover them in a video. And if you want to see the lists on their own yet again, just check out my SHOWZONE profile down below. And thank you guys for watching.